Okay, so I am going to start the webinar now and a few more people will be joining, but I'd just like to welcome everyone to today's Doctor of Medicine and Surgery Information Seminar. We are talking to you today from the School of Medicine and Psychology, and we are here to answer any questions that you may have about the graduate medical program at the ANU. So just a little bit of information about the ANU first. So the Australian National University was founded in 1946 by the Australian government, and it was founded to conduct research of national importance to advance the nation. So we are a research-intensive university, and this is something that we are very proud of. To this day, we are still the only university that has been created by the Parliament of Australia. And our motto for our university is first to know the nature of things. We conduct world-class research to improve Australia and the world, and we are located in Australia's capital city, Canberra. So a little bit about the Australian National University. We are proudly ranked number 30 in the world. So we are a highly reputable university. I'm sure many of you have been looking at rankings, and that's been part of your consideration when you're looking at where you would like to pursue your studies. We have the number one most employable graduates in Australia, and we're number one for Australia's most international outlook. We have a 5-star rating for staff to student ratio, and we have more than 100 clubs and societies for our students. We are a research-focused university, so you really get to learn from the experts. 91% of ANU academic staff hold a PhD, and we have 6 Nobel laureates at the ANU in our history, and this is from staff and alumni. Our former Vice-Chancellor, Professor Brian Schmidt, held a Nobel Prize in Physics in 2011. 96% of broadfield research at ANU is rated above or well above world standard. And we are the most research-intensive university in Australia. We have state-of-the-art teaching and research facilities that is accessible to all of our students. So just a little bit about the College of Health and Medicine. We offer many different health and medicine programs. Now, of course, today we will be talking about the Doctor of Medicine and Surgery program. But we do have 3 different research schools and centres within our college. We have the School of Medicine and Psychology, which brings the body and mind together. We have the National Centre for Epidemiology and Population Health, which really focuses on the health of nations. And we have the John Curtin School of Medical Research, and there's some fantastic research that comes out of this school. And this may be something that you get to interact with as part of your medicine journey, or if you choose to do further research in the future. We, of course, have lots of affiliations and industry partnerships and with our clinical placements, and some of them are listed on the screen here. So I did mention that we have 6 Nobel laureates at ANU, and 4 of them come from ANU College of Health and Medicine. And this, again, is something that we are very proud of as a college. So I am now going to introduce Dr. Paul Fitzgerald, who will take over, and he is the head of school for the School of Psychology and Medicine. So over to you, Paul.
Thanks, Crystal. Are you going to go through the slides?
Yes, I will.
Okay, I'll just get you to go to the next slide. So, welcome everybody. As Crystal indicated, my name is Paul Fitzgerald. I'm the head of the School of Medicine and Psychology and the convener of our medical program. And I'm just going to spend a few minutes to give you a bit of an overview of the program and what studying medicine at ANU is like. Our medical degree, our MCH degree, is a 4-year postgraduate degree that begins in semester 1 of each year, so end of January or early February of each year. There are 4 major themes that underpin the medical degree, and we expect all of our students to develop a degree of competency and knowledge in all of these areas. Firstly is medical sciences. This really covers all areas of science that underpins the basis of medicine and medical knowledge. So really everything from physiology to anatomy to pharmacology, so on and so forth. And we do that in a way where we provide a relatively intensive exposure to some of the foundations of medical science at the start of the degree, really in the first semester of year one. And then a lot of the medical science knowledge is taught in the context of understanding the various systems that underpin our bodily functions and the diseases that can develop in those. So it's after that initial 6-month period of time, the medical sciences are really blended into the teaching model across the rest of the course. We have a very extensive and I think quite advanced clinical skills program that really starts right in the first week of the program. So we start training our students in clinical skills a day a week from the first week of the program, and that goes right throughout. And so that will include everything from taking a history from a patient, physical examination, all the way through to being able to do various procedures that are required of a doctor once they graduate from the course. Thirdly, there is foundation knowledge around population health, and this is both understanding what diseases there are within our communities, but also understanding what aspects of environmental interactions contribute to developing disease, such that our doctors can understand the problems that their patients develop in a much more broader framework. And finally, are the areas of professionalism and leadership development. As a doctor, you're not only expected to be able to make decisions about health-related questions, but you're expected to lead health-related teams. You're expected to interact and act as a professional in a variety of settings. And so we think that it's really important to get training on these elements of professional development, not just purely the science and clinical skills of medicine. Let's go to the next slide. Our expectation for our graduates is that they have that scientific understanding, but that they can apply that in a very specific clinical environment, that they have a broad concept of what it is to be an excellent professional, that they can work with an individual patient, but they can understand that patient's circumstances in a much broader global perspective. They will have graduated up through a research-intensive environment so that they understand the research basis of medical practice and are equipped, if they choose to do so, to embed ongoing research into their clinical practice going forward. That they very specifically have an understanding that medical education is not a once-off thing that you do to become a doctor, but it's something that really needs to become part of the way you think about being a doctor in the future. And ultimately, we're not, graduates don't come out of medical school as general practitioners or surgeons or radiologists or physicians, but they're on the pathway to becoming a successful doctor, that they can be a very good, excellent doctor in the next stage of their careers, and they know what's required to go on to become whatever that they want to become in the future. Next slide, please. This is an overview of what the program looks like. Unlike a lot of other university degrees, there isn't a great deal of choice in this program because we really have a core program that runs across all 4 years of the program. So in first year, Medicine 1A and Professional Practice. Medicine 1A is particularly the foundations part of the program where students learn about the basic sciences underpinning medical practice. In the second half of first year and through second year, there is the core systems-based medical knowledge that they develop. But through all of these areas, there is professional practice subjects, and in second year also a research project that most students will begin in first year and then complete in second year. And then during their clinical years, Students will go full-time into the hospital system and other clinical placements throughout year 3 and year 4. Next slide, please. We have a relatively extensive series of places where our students go for their clinical exposure, and that's structured through 3 clinical schools: our Canberra Clinical School, our Sydney Clinical School, and our Rural Clinical School. Within the Canberra Clinical School, we have the main Canberra Hospital of Canberra Health Services, but we also have a second hospital, the North Canberra Hospital, and we have a series of general practice and community placements. We have our Sydney Clinical School is based at the Sydney Adventist Hospital, which is the largest private hospital in New South Wales. It's a large general hospital providing an extensive range of medical and surgical services. And then our Rural Clinical School has sites throughout southeast New South Wales where we have teaching facilities in 6 hub regions across our rural areas, with teaching facilities that will include simulation facilities and centralised teaching, as well as outreach into a whole range of hospital and general practice-based places where our students actually go. Next slide, please. I'm just going to play you a short clip that talks a little bit about the rural experience.
Today we've got a group of first-year medical students that are visiting Bega for most of a week for a rural immersion program.
We want to give these guys a fantastic experience about what it's like to live rurally, to practice medicine rurally, and hopefully encourage them to come back once they get to the end of their training and they're looking at finding places to live and work.
We've organised a whole day with our local emergency services.
It's all of our local emergency services coming together to talk about what happens at the other end of an event or incident prior to the casualties making their way to the emergency department.
We're combining the program for the medical students with another program that's being run for staff from our district. And that program is really focused on trauma management. We've got a team from Canberra that have come down to help run that parallel program for the day.
Whether they're in Melbourne, Sydney, Canberra or in Bega, you should be receiving the best possible care with the most up-to-date practices.
And in the afternoon, the 2 groups will come together and we have a simulated trauma exercise in which the emergency services will have some vehicles situationed to replicate a major traffic incident, and they'll be extricated from the vehicles and the ambulance will be involved in then taking them to the hospital, where the hospital team will receive them and will run a simulation based on the outdoor event. So today is really providing an opportunity for interaction between the hospital staff and the emergency services, for actually 2-way observation and dialogue, so that we can see what they do at the roadside and also to give them an idea of what happens when they bring their patients into the emergency department and we then look after them. I came here as a medical student in 2006 and I had a really great experience down here. And so one of the ideas of today is to give the medical students that are down here for the week something that will hopefully help them to remember Bega in a positive way. Just helps them think about living and working in the country as an option for when they graduate and when they finish further training after medicine.
So the next couple of slides are designed just to give you a bit of an understanding about what the clinical years will look like. This is a series of students' exposures across the first half of their 3rd year, and essentially in 3rd year students will do what are two major rotations. One is the foundations of internal medicine and surgery, and for these students they're doing that in their first half of the year. And what you see here is a series of blocks of places where the students will have an exposure to a variety of medical and surgical disciplines. And so some of those will be general medicine and general surgery, but they also will have shorter periods of time, 2 or 3 weeks through this, where they'll have placements in some specialty areas such as cardiology, neurosurgery, and the like. And whilst most of these placements here are in the Canberra Hospital. Some of them are in North Canberra Hospital and some are at the Sydney Adventist Hospital in Sydney. Next slide, please. This shows the second half of third year for those students. Other students will have a reverse order. The other half of third year is the integrated community and child health rotation. So the intent of this rotation is to provide training in the areas of paediatrics and general practice. And so if you take the top student here, they're spending the first part of their rotation on in paediatrics, and that is based at the Canberra Hospital. They're then spending a series of 6 weeks on an urban GP rotation. So they'll be with a GP in the Canberra region, and then doing a 6-week placement in a rural setting with a general practitioner, such as in the Braidwood Medical Centre, which is a couple of hours outside of the ACT itself. So it's a mixture of paediatrics, rural, and urban general practice. Next slide, please. This is a slightly busy slide that shows you the set of rotations that occur during fourth year. They're essentially 4 areas that students rotate through during fourth year. There is women's health and newborn care, so that includes obstetrics and gynecology, as well as newborn care, so caring of newborn infants. There's psychiatry and addiction medicine. There's acute care, so that is emergency medicine and associated disciplines. And then there's another block of general medicine and surgery. If you look carefully at this, you'll see that the final block that the students engage in finishes in early August. The students will then have their final year exams in August. That doesn't mean the year finishes so early. What happens is after the exams, the students return for what's called the print block, which is preparation for internship. So it's really a transition block of education after exams are over, where our students can really concentrate on the day-to-day skills that are required to allow for the transition into their placement as junior doctors in the healthcare system. Next slide, please. And I'll just finish with this quote from one of our graduates, which hopefully is a very positive one, who's benefited from the opportunity to have placements in a variety of areas, both in the public system and in the private, and across a number of the geographical areas where our students go to. So thank you, and I look forward to some questions at the end. And I think I'm handing over to Shelley to talk a little bit about our admissions process.
Thanks, Paul, and hello, everyone. So I'm Shelley. I lead the team that looks after admissions into the Doctor of Medicine and Surgery program. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the basic admission criteria. The link at the bottom of this page is where you will find the full details of our minimum eligibility requirements. It also provides quite detailed information about how we calculate a GPA, depending on what undergraduate degree you have done. So please feel free to have a look at that link at a later stage. So as a quick background, the 3 things that we look at when assessing an application is your bachelor degree. So you have to have either completed or be in the final year of a bachelor degree with a minimum weighted GPA of 5.0 out of 7. For someone who may have done an a degree overseas, we would do a conversion where we would convert those scores onto a 7-point GPA. The next thing is either the GAMSAT or the MCAT. So for domestic applicants, we will only accept a GAMSAT result. For international applicants, we will accept either a valid GAMSAT or an MCAT. And both tests are valid for 4 years. And I'll talk a little bit more about those on the next slide. And then the third thing is meeting the English language requirements. So these are the 3 things we look at to determine whether someone's eligible for an interview. One really important thing in regards to the bachelor degree is we don't have any preferred undergraduate degree. We welcome applicants from any undergraduate background. It doesn't have to have been in a science or health and medicine discipline. So that's something to think about as well. Next slide, please. So the GAMSAT and MCAT, as I said, the domestic applicants, we only accept GAMSAT. You have to achieve a minimum overall score of 50 with a minimum of 50 in each section. So you have to achieve that for us to consider your application. And for the MCAT, you must achieve a minimum score of 125 in each of those sections for your application to be considered. And as I said, these scores are valid for 4 years, and there's multiple opportunities throughout the year to sit the MCAT test, and the GAMSAT you can sit 2 times each year, which is March and September. Next slide, please. So selecting for interviews, we use your weighted grade point average, so your GPA, and weight that 50%, and then we use your GAMSAT or MCAT score, which is also 50%. For anyone who may have done higher degree research degrees, so for example, a standalone honours, or a master's by research or a PhD, you may be eligible for a percentage bonus, and that percentage bonus is applied to your combined GPA GAMSAT score. So it doesn't impact the raw score of your GPA. You still have to meet those minimum requirements before you may be eligible for a research bonus. So we will use those 2 things to rank applicants for interview consideration. For those applicants that are successful in receiving an interview, they are held in July for international students and September for domestic students. And then the interview score then forms the next piece of assessment when ranking for offers. So we will then use the interview score, which is 50%, and that combined composite score of your GPA GAMSAT is the other 50%. So in terms of interviews for international applicants, so the domestic applications for 2025 have now closed through GEMSAS. Our international applications are still open until the end of the month. And we have an international interview guarantee, which is advertised on our website. So for any international applicant that has a weighted GPA of 6 and a minimum overall GAMSAT of 60, or a minimum overall MCAT of 515, will be guaranteed an interview. And the interviews this year will be held between the 17th and 19th of July, with international offers being released in August. So for domestic applicants, as I said, the applications have already closed. The assessment process has already begun, and interview offers will be released at the end of August for September. And that's it from me. I'll happy to answer some questions at the end, but I'll hand over to Mel to talk a little bit more about the student perspective.
Thanks, Shelley. Hi, everyone. My name is Mel, and I'm a current third-year medical student at ANU. And I'm also a member of the ANU Medical Student Society as Advocacy Officer this year, and I would like to give an overview of our student body. Next slide, please. So our student body, otherwise known as ANUMS, is a really important part of medical school life for ANU students, and it represents nearly everyone at the school. So we have over 90% in terms of our memberships. We have a number of teams within the society, so it's a great way to get involved no matter what your interests are. These include the academic team, the advocacy team, the wellbeing team, as well as the social team. So just to run through a few of the things that we offer as a student body. In terms of academic support, we have incredible inter-year level support between all the different year levels. Students go out of their way to run MOSCEs, which are practice exams for the younger year levels. We also have an amazing platform that was created by students for students with lots of practice exams that are set out in a format that simulates the real exam, which is a really invaluable resource. We also have students running tutorials in their own time to help support students in younger year levels, which is really special. In terms of representation, we work really hard with internal advocacy in terms of sitting on a committee with staff as part of the SMP, which is really unique to ANU, and not a lot of other medical schools have that opportunity to collaborate with staff. Additionally, we have a lot of wellbeing support as well. We run events such as Blue Week, which is a whole week of activities to help mental wellbeing. We also have a buddy program between first years and second years to really ease the transition into medical school, which is really great. In terms of socialising, we have a special social calendar filled with amazing events that really help foster friendships for all students. And these include things like the Med Review, which is a drama performance that happens every year. We have the Med Ball, that's always hosted at a really special location at one of Canberra's amazing venues. For example, this year it's going to be at Old Parliament House. We also have Med Camp at the start of the year, which is a really great opportunity to meet people, especially if you're an incoming first year. And we have some really cool merch that drops every year as well. Next slide. In terms of international support, ANUMS has an international student rep that is elected every year, and they're very proactive in organising unique events just for international students to make sure they all feel really well supported. And there's a really great culture around international students, especially at phase one, which is your first 2 years of uni. As you're on campus, everyone's usually living together, and there's really great opportunities to meet, mingle, and go to all these events together. And that's a really important part of ANU Medical Student Society as well. Next slide. In terms of membership, it is a paid membership, but you do get a lot for your money's worth. So it's $56 if you sign up in your first year of medical school, and that lasts you for the entirety of the degree. Otherwise, you can just sign up for $15 a year. And if you decide not to at the start, you can sign up in second or third year. But with this membership, you get access to all those incredible resources in terms of academic stuff, as well as you get reduced prices to all of the social events. So it's really important to sign up as soon as you start so you can access all of those cool benefits from the student body. Next slide. And these are all of our socials if you would like to have a look at what we've got going on, what we've had in the past. And if you have any questions specifically about ANU Medical Student Society, please feel free to reach out to that email address as well. Thanks, Crystal. Oh yeah, if anyone has any questions, more than happy to answer them too.
Fantastic. So we are going to open up for questions now. So I'm just going to stop sharing, and I'll open up and see if there's anything in the chat. Please, for anyone who's here with us today, so we do actually have a question here that I'll read out to the panel. It's a question about the Bachelor of Health Science pathway into the Doctor of Medicine and Surgery, and whether this is a popular pathway for aspiring medicine students. So if anyone from the panel would like to take that, we can answer that live. And maybe just explain that pathway through the Bachelor of Health Science into MCHD.
I can start, and Shelley might want to make some admissions comments as well. Yes, it is the simple answer. A significant proportion of our intake into the MCHD degree comes from students who've done the Bachelor of Health Science degree. It's certainly not all of our students, or even the majority of our students, but we have a pathway where a specific number of people within that degree will come into the medical degree. It provides an excellent background understanding of not just core medical science, but some broader aspects of health science. And so it's slightly different than a traditional biomedical science degree, in that the focus is just a little bit broader, and we think that actually prepares our students extremely well for life in medicine, in that they have an understanding, as I said, not just of medical science, but aspects of the system in which health is provided, the social determinants of illness, and so forth. So it does provide a really excellent foundational knowledge base for entry into medicine. I don't know if you want to comment about the admission specific parts of that.
Yeah, I can add to that. So we have places for around 100 to 120 students each intake into the medicine degree. Approximately 30 to 35 of those come from the Bachelor of Health Science. From an admissions point of view, so the health science program, the pathway avoids the GAMSAT, which is quite an attractive thing for a lot of students, but there's still competitive. It's still a competitive process. So applicants in the health science degree still have to meet a minimum weighted average mark of 75%. They also have to sit an interview, and they also have to submit responses to selection criteria questions. So there's still 3 assessment components through that health science degree. So we will use the WAM, the interview score, and the selection criteria responses to determine who gets offers from that program. So it is a really attractive pathway, but still a competitive process.
Fantastic. Now, while we're waiting for some questions, I might just ask a few questions. Specifically for you, Mel, maybe you can tell us about your background and how you actually joined the Doctor of Medicine and Surgery program, how you best prepared for it, just giving advice to people in the audience.
Sure. In terms of my personal academic background, I did a Bachelor of Biomedicine, so it's pretty similar to the Health Sci or the Med Sci pathway at ANU. After that, I did my honours year, which I think was a really great thing to do going into ANU Medicine, as not only was there a bonus for entrance, but it also prepared me really well for the research projects that are a key part of the ANU medical degree. Whilst this knowledge isn't necessary to do the research in the degree, I just think it was nice to have that experience beforehand. In terms of preparing for medicine, I think that it is important to obviously apply yourself as much as you can to your academics, but also trying to foster other co-curriculars, especially if you're going through that health science pathway, because they're really interested in having well-rounded people. That really comes through in things like your interviews. And yeah, I think that's the main things I would say.
Fantastic. And maybe just for Shelley, you obviously see lots of applications coming into the Doctor of Medicine and Surgery. We do often get a lot of questions about the interview process in particular and what people should be preparing for or expecting. Are you able to just give us a little bit of an overview of what people would expect when it actually comes to those interview selection processes?
Yeah, I think, look, the best advice I could probably give in regards to our interviews is we're not testing people on, their medical knowledge. It's how people see the world, or, how they react to things. So I think we get a lot of people that are very scared of the interview process. But it's not something to be scared of. I think it's, unfortunately, we're in a place now where our interviews have to be online. We would love for them to be in person, but all our interviews are held online, which also is a great opportunity for people they can be anywhere located in the world, and they can still attend their interviews. So there's no barriers to attendance in that regard, which is really good. For our international applicants, it's over Zoom, and it usually involves a mixture of short answer and scenario-based questions. And then for our domestic interviews, they're held in September, and similar, there's a mixture of short response questions and scenario-based, and they're also held over Zoom as well.
Fantastic. And maybe just for Paul, giving us a bit of an overview. Obviously, you gave an overview of the 4-year degree. Talking a little bit more about clinical placements and what are the best sort of skills that students can use to really immerse themselves in those clinical placements, and how that really helps them to get job ready. That's really the big question we get, is what do I do after my degree? How do I join the hospital system? So maybe you can talk us through that process.
So clinical placements are an absolutely critical part of any medical degree. You need to spend time essentially with patients, both talking to them, examining them, and integrating into the life of the hospital to really learn what it's like to be a doctor, essentially. We are very fortunate that we have a series of excellent and substantive clinical partners, and that the hospitals and general practices where our students go, we essentially don't compete with any other medical schools. There are certainly places elsewhere where there might be multiple medical programs utilising the same hospital environments, and then you have lots of students trying to see a limited number of patients. That can really diminish the experience that you have. That's certainly not the experience for our students. We have very large numbers of patients in most of the places where our students go, relative to the number of students who are being placed in those environments. Probably the most important aspect that students can bring to those experiences is to put themselves forward. The reality is, anywhere where we have clinical placements, our students are embedded alongside busy doctors who are going about their day-to-day work. We tend to have a really excellent group of doctors who want to support our students, but they are busy. And so the students who put themselves forward to get engaged in the day-to-day life of the wards and the clinics that they're placed on are really going to get more out of that experience than students who don't. And the environments will differ. You know, I was up in one of our clinical placements just recently in a rural setting, and one of our students had just spent the night with a doctor in the emergency department. You know, that takes putting yourself out to be there for the night rather than worrying about being there during the day and, you know, are you going to get your sleep? But during that one night, she had done a series of procedures that when I was a medical student many, many years ago, I never got to do those procedures until I was actually working as a doctor in the real world, because she put herself out there. She was in that unusual setting at that, you know, during the night. The doctor she was working with was quite happy to sit and teach her how to do a series of procedures that she may not have got exposure to otherwise. So all of that is really building up your skills such that when day one, when you walk into the hospital as an intern, you've got the capacity to do that. And that's a combination of the clinical skills training that we do, a lot of which is simulated, how to take bloods, how to put in an IV line, how to suture. You can do a lot of those things in a simulated environment, but you also need to gradually transition to doing some of those aspects in day-to-day on patients, and that's very much what we hope those clinical places allow most of our students to get experience in.
Great. And just as Mel is here, from a student perspective, maybe just tell us, you know, what were your concerns or your, you know, initial experiences actually getting into that clinical world, and do you have any thing that you can share with the audience?
Sure. So I started placement this year, and I started off with my community placements and doing general practice first. And I totally agree with everything that Professor Fitzgerald said in terms of putting yourself out there on placement and making sure that you show a level of wanting to be involved as much as you can, because I think that is instantly reciprocated, and you create the learning environment that you, in terms of like the energy that you give off. In my first week of rural placement, I was straight into suturing, which was so awesome, and really just like getting hands-on, which feels so good after 2 years of lectures, and it really makes everything start to feel real, and you feel part of the medical team. And it's a really unique aspect of this degree, because you really don't feel like you're studying, and you learn so much by being in a clinical environment. And yeah, it's really worth it. There are some long days, but I think what you get out of it and how you feel and working towards your career feels really awesome. So yeah, placement's been really good.
Great. Now we do have two questions, and I'll sort of ask them together because they are linked. So the first one is just to be specific. So graduates from the Doctor of Medicine and Surgery program, do they have sufficient qualification to enter into the hospital system? And the second question is for international students who actually do the Doctor of Medicine and Surgery. Upon graduation, can they actually practice medicine in Singapore, Hong Kong, or other mainland cities in China? So I might give that to you, Paul.
Yeah, so the first question is yes. So the graduating from the degree is regarded as a qualifying degree for medical registration in Australia. So in Australia, you will achieve provisional registration with your degree, which allows you to work as an intern, and then after your completion of your intern, you can progress to full registration. And as I indicated earlier on, the print block, so the last block of our students, is very much oriented towards that, the finishing touches to make sure our students are really ready for that transition. I can't personally speak about each jurisdiction, but my experience has certainly been that the vast majority of jurisdictions, our degree is seen as sufficient for local medical registration, and we have had historically a fairly high rate of international students who have also been able to, who have wanted to do so, have been able to stay on and work in Australia through various visa pathways with their Australian degree. And so even with the Canberra Hospital this year, there was a number of international students who remained and worked within the local healthcare system after they graduated.
So yeah, I might just clarify that. So for international students who do graduate, there is a post-study work rights visa that you're eligible to apply for. So you're not going straight back home to your home country if you choose to stay in Australia. There are opportunities for you to actually practice in Australia and do your junior residency within Australia before you return home. Now, we don't have any other questions, so I'll leave another minute or so just if there are any last minute questions from the audience. But in the meantime, I might get each member of the panel to just give a very brief, a few words of advice on how students can best prepare themselves for the Doctor of Medicine and Surgery program at ANU.
I think from my perspective, Crystal, there's probably two elements of that. One is preparing for the application, and then there's preparing to actually engage as a student in our program. I think I'll talk mainly about the second element, which is I think building off something that both Mel and I said before, which is really that in coming here, I would encourage any student to really come and try to take advantage of a breadth of the opportunities that are available to them. You have to find a right balance for what suits you and how much you can take on, but both from a formal education perspective and, as Mel outlined, a sort of a peer and related perspective, there are just lots of really exciting opportunities to take advantage of. And I think the students who get the most out of the program are ones who do tend to put themselves forward and participate in a whole range of those experiences. I was talking to a student yesterday who had taken part in the medical review, which is a spectacular event put on by our students every year. And he was just talking about, kind of how exhausted he was after the weeks, because there was a lot of work in preparation, but also just how much confidence he gained by doing that, of being on stage, and how engaged he'd felt with his peer group, the work they'd put in, and it was really clear that had been a profoundly positive experience for him, even though it had taken up a lot of time and had been a lot of hard work. And I think that's a good example of what I'm trying to talk about.
Sure. And I suppose from an application point of view, I think my biggest advice is just to reach out to my team. If you've got any questions about, whether you're eligible, what degree you've done, we don't want people to be sitting there thinking, I've got no chance, I won't get in, so I won't apply. That's the last thing we want. So just to reach out to us, we can help you if you've got a complicated situation with your undergraduate degree. We can guide you through that and help you through that process. And once you've actually applied as well, there's lots of resources out there online from a preparation for interview as well. So, although we directly can't give out interview, advice or guidance or training, there's a lot of resources out there online that can help through that process. But yeah, my biggest advice is just to reach out to us and get that application in, and we can help you through that process.
I might just jump in that we do have a question. It's specific for students that do a Bachelor of Medical Science at ANU. So Shelley, I'm not sure whether this is an online or offline question, but the question is, how many places for international students who graduate from the ANU Bachelor of Medical Science, how many places are there in the Doctor of Medicine and Surgery? So I'm not sure if you can just speak a little bit about that, or if that's a question that a student can direct to you via email offline.
Yeah, well, I suppose, like I said in the presentation, we don't have, besides the Bachelor of Health Science pathway, we also have a PhD, Bachelor of Philosophy Honours pathway, which can have students not have to sit the GAMSAT, and international applicants can come through that. in any other way, we accept applications from any other undergraduate degree. So there's not a specific number of places available from an ANU graduate Bachelor of Medical Science. We would 100% welcome an application from someone who has done that. We have, 20 plus positions available within our medicine program for international students, and those places are taken up through students from our pathway programs and then through our direct pathway programs through a direct application process as well. So an ANU Bachelor of Medical Science undergrad applicant, we would welcome an application.
Great. And some last words of advice from you, Mel.
My advice for any incoming medical students would be to just get really excited for it. I think medicine is such an awesome time of your life, and also like the academics is great, but aside from that, the student culture is so special at ANU. We have a small cohort. Everyone knows each other so well in between year levels, in your own year level, and there's so much fun that you can have while studying, and it's just, yeah, a really unique time of your life before you get into the workforce. So just being really excited and open-minded and wanting to jump into it, I think would be my advice.
Fantastic. Well, I just want to extend a massive thank you to the members of the panel today. We hope you found this webinar interesting and informative. We hope we answered the questions that you may have about studying medicine at the Australian National University. You can, of course, get in contact with us at ANU College of Health and Medicine. You can get in contact with Shelley's team directly, which is the email address just at the bottom there. And we are super excited to receive any of those last-minute international applications and welcoming you to the 2025 Doctor of Medicine and Surgery program. Thank you so much.